This is Castle 1. Race officer speaking.
Lane line is on boundary up ahead, 35 seconds out.
A bit lower and faster here.
That's a good one, Jimmy.
Still gaining on the lane line there.
We're looking at 10.5 and 42. Matching him on the boundary, yeah. Copy.
Hello, podcast listeners, and welcome back to part 2 of our fascinating chat with Olympic gold medalist, multiple laser world champion, America's Cup winner, multiple World Sailor of the Year award winner, Middle Sea Race winner, Sydney to Hobart winner, 2-time Moth World champion, double SailGP series winner. He's even been Etchells class world champion, and I know I've no doubt missed several other accolades, but I am of course talking about the incredibly talented Australian superstar of professional sailboat racing, the incomparable Tom Slingsby. In part 1, we talked through Tom's early career, how the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games inspired the 15-year-old Tom to dedicate his life to achieving a very specific set of sailing goals. And we left Tom as an America's Cup rookie, feeling very responsible for trashing a very expensive 72-foot foiling multi-hull out on the treacherous San Francisco Bay. If you haven't already listened to part 1, obviously go back and give it a listen first. You'll hear how Tom's confidence grew as his results began to mirror his talent, and how he was recruited into the then massive Oracle Team USA Cup team. Before we pick things up with Tom, if you're enjoying season 4 of the podcast, then please do head over and show your support at buymeacoffee.com/sailing podcast. It's easy to use, and your support allows us to stay ad-free so we can keep on delivering these uninterrupted stories. If you've done so already, a huge thanks for the coffees. If not, why not head over and take a look? It makes a real difference. Okay, back to Tom. We pick things up in 2013, and a young Tom Slingsby has found himself a key part of the afterguard of the America's Cup defender, Oracle Team USA. The team are about to start defending the Cup against a very well-appointed Emirates Team New Zealand. What follows is probably the most candid account of this story that I have ever heard. We've discussed it often on this podcast, from almost all the key members of that afterguard. But Tom's memories of the event almost seem to reflect exactly what they are. Memories of a then young America's Cup rookie, surrounded by experience and talent, about to pull off one of the most unbelievable sporting comebacks you could imagine. It's a fascinating insight, told as if it was yesterday.
Russell just gave us a full dressing down. He just said, how many medals have you got at the back of that boat and you're still making these mistakes? What Jimmy said wasn't a lie. They were changing the boat every day and it got faster every day. When I flew down to New Zealand and went out on the boat and watched, I straight away realised we're in big trouble.
It ended up being the most incredible Cup, though, much talked about on this podcast. And as time passes, I wonder if the memories fade a little, Tom. I mean, what can you remember specifically about being 8-1 down to New Zealand with the prospect of so many last chance races to win?
Yeah, I remember the change we made where we brought Ben Ainsley on at 4-1 down, and nothing against JK John Kostecki. He's like still to this day one of the best tacticians I've ever raced against. But I remember thinking that's a good move. We've got Ben Ainsley, the greatest sailor of all time, sitting on the sidelines. And I think he was just a bit more open to, look, let's change things. What's it going to take? Let's make some changes here to get the boat going faster. And I remember that was, for me, I was happy that we were going to make that change. And then I remember we went out and lost, went 6-1 down. And I remember we were 6-1 down and we came in from racing and we said, and I remember saying, I actually think we're faster than Team New Zealand now. I think we're quicker than them upwind, and we've got a good shot of winning this. And I remember a few people saying, "Oh, I don't know about this." And then we went out the next day, and Russell came up to me and said, "You think we're quicker, don't you?" And I said, "I do. I absolutely think we're now sailing the boat faster. We were making changes every day. I was sort of pushing this foiling upwind, and now with Ben sort of jumping on board, he was a believer in it too. Jimmy was coming around, and every day we're training, we're getting faster and faster. We're making changes to the boat." And then we went out sailing on 6-1 down, and we went out and lost the next two races. So it went 7-1, 8-1 down, and we were the faster boat. And I remember I was called into a meeting with Russell, Jimmy, Grant Simmer and Ben, and Russell just gave us a full dressing down. He just said, "You guys call yourselves the best sailors in the world. Like, how many medals have you got at the back of that boat, and you're still making these mistakes? Like, basically, long story short, get your shit together. No more mistakes. None. We can't afford it." And that was I still remember I was just getting yelled at by Russell Coots, and I still remember sitting there just going, "I can't believe I'm sitting in the same room with these legends like Grant Simmer, Jimmy, Ben Ainsley, Russell Coots, and I got invited into this dressing down." But I remember I was really in awe. But a key thing there, I think it was about around that time, 6-1 down or 5-1, Russell Coots got everyone into a meeting room, all the designers, all the sailors, and said, "Bring every idea you've got. We're going to lose this America's Cup unless we make some changes." And I think on this, and then we wrote an agenda and we all sat in there. I think there was about 26 items on this list. Everything, what could we do to speed the boat up? And everything from not using jibs, sailing wing alone, to chopping foils down, to everything. And we went through each one systematically, and Russell goes, "Okay, what do you think? This is? Okay, no, I don't like it. Next. Okay, I like that one. We're going to go with that one." And he made these definitive decisions. And if he got one of those wrong, I think we ended up with about eight changes we were going to make to the boat, and left 16 off the table or something like that. And if he got one of those decisions wrong, we would have lost. And all 8 decisions actually made the boat faster and almost easier to sail. And then it just really threw the ball in the sailors' court. And then we went out and lost the next 2 races. And and we from then on knew no more mistakes. We've got a faster boat, and in Olympic class racing, if you've got a faster boat, you've got a huge advantage. And so we just knew that, okay, no more mistakes from here. And then it began, I guess. If you take out the hiccup of 8-2 down and the light air race where Team New Zealand just absolutely outsailed us, and then were brutally unlucky to miss the time limit, we sailed so well from then on. And
I want to ask you a couple of Russell questions on the back of that. Like, what does a dressing down from Russell Coots really look like? How brutal is that? And I guess we've asked the questions about the comeback to quite a few people, but no one, including Russell, has said that before. I mean, how instrumental he was about shaping that technical comeback. So I'm quite intrigued to hear more.
Yeah, Russell, I guess he was so busy the whole campaign. He was the event organizer. He was there deciding what the race village is going to look like, or what sort of stalls you're going to have, how many spectators, VIP boats he had so much on his plate. So he wasn't with us in his full capacity, but when the match started, it was almost like he was able to push that aside and join us. And Russell used to be there a lot, and he used to sit in the back of meetings, and he always used to, on purpose, walk in after the meeting had started, quietly at the back door, and then sit in the back corner. And I think it's because he didn't want everyone to know that he was there and listening. But as the match went on, you just sort of realised how good he really is, because I hadn't had a lot to do with him, I guess, to that point. And I remember about 6 months before the match, maybe 5 months before, I was going on and on about upwind foiling in this meeting, and I didn't know Russell was in this meeting. He'd walked in quietly, and I was basically arguing with these super smart designers about how we can upwind foil the boat, and I'm saying, look, the boat takeoff speed is 22 knots. Our target upwind in this breeze is 21 knots. Why can't we just go a little faster, pop on the foil, and then come up? And they're saying, no, with the boundaries, you're going to end up having to do too many tacks up the beat. You're not going to be able to go fast enough to make that. You're not going to be able to sail high enough. And by this stage, I'd gained a bit of confidence, I think, and I was like basically saying to the designers that they're wrong. And I walked out of that meeting and walked off and in a bit of a huff, and Russell called me into his office. I was like, what's this about? He wasn't there. And he said, I was listening to that. Do you actually think you're right? And I said, I think I'm right. And he said, well, don't stop. He said, don't let him sort of tell you that it's not possible. Just keep going. And I just kept pushing. And for me, I just got approval from the boss to keep going hard with it. But and then I guess Russell just, during the match, he became more and more involved. When he realised he knew if he didn't step in, we were going to lose this match, and he just said, we're going to make changes and let's see what it's going to be. And but that dressing down, I'll never forget that. He had video footage up, and I still remember him looking at me and Ben and saying, why the F did you guys tack here? Why did you tack there? You should have gone another 100 metres and tacked here. And I was sitting there going, yeah, he's right, yeah. And it was a few swear words, but he was right on every point. And Ben and I were pretty good friends at that stage. We sort of lived side by side, and Ben was driving me. He was picking me up on the way to work every day, and in his beautiful Aston Martin, I might add. And we had a lot of time to talk about it, and every day we were like, yep, okay, we're just not going to make mistakes here. We can't be the reason we lose this. And and so we tightened up our tactical game and realised where we were making mistakes, and all of a sudden we had a faster boat that we just got to stick with them, not make mistakes, and we're going to win.
The afterguards on that winning boat: Jimmy Spittle, of course, Ben Ainsley, a very young Kyle Langford, Joey Newton, yourself, of course. I mean, so much talent. All sailors that know how to win. How surprised were you all once you crossed that finish line for the final time? How surprised were you all that you'd pulled it off?
It was crazy. I just remember thinking, like, the whole joke at our team was we'd heard Team New Zealand had had an Emirates A380 sitting on the tarmac ready to fly the team home private. And we also heard that they had a $250,000 party planned at one of the high-rises in San Francisco for the day they win. And we heard that they would lose $250,000. This is all probably not true, but this is what we got told. They were going to lose $250,000 a day between the party being booked and the plane on the tarmac every day they don't win. And so the joke became in our team, let's make them lose $250,000 today. And it was a bit of a joke between us, but yeah, as it just happened, we just got this wave of momentum, and then every day we're like, okay, they're down $750,000 today, let's make it $1 million. And there was a huge joke to us in a very serious situation, but that was a bit of a joke between the crew. And when we actually were able to do it and actually not make crucial mistakes. In the end, we were able to make mistakes and still win because the boat was just going faster and faster. And Jimmy sort of in the press conferences saying, we're changing this boat every day. That wasn't a lie. The shore team, every night, we're trying to implement all these changes that Russell had. They didn't happen overnight. We didn't go from no changes to 8 changes. It basically, okay, which one's a priority? This one. This will take 5 days. Okay, let's get going on that. And so every day the boat came out, it was improved. And what Jimmy said wasn't a lie. They were changing the boat every day, and it got faster every day. So, but when we crossed the line, it was elation. I was sort of a bit in shock. Everyone was in shock, but I was just sort of the young kid, as Kyle Langford and Sam Newton, Kinley Fowler, Rome Kirby. We were just young guys along for the journey, and we just couldn't believe we were a part of it all.
What was the experience of the aftermath of that victory?
I was really sick, actually. The last few days of that match, I was so run down. I guess my immune system, after 3 weeks of competing every day, and we didn't take our days off. When there was a day off scheduled, Team New Zealand would often take it off, and we never took a day off. So I was 3 weeks on the water straight in San Francisco, tough conditions, and I was a grinder. It was brutal, and I was really sick. And I remember going to the after party and everyone just out of control. And I left early, which is, if people know young Tom, that's a bit unlike me. But I was just so sick and run down, and I had to leave. But you were just giddy for months and months after. Like, I remember I flew back to Australia and everyone's like, we need to go celebrate this. This was like, that's unbelievable. Like, can you believe that actually happened? And then everyone calling it the greatest comeback in sports. I was like, I just couldn't believe I was a part of it all.
Within just over a year, you'd won that coveted Olympic gold medal and lifted the America's Cup in the most unlikely of circumstances. I mean, where do you go from there? Still in your 20s, your late 20s. I mean, how did you possibly keep focusing on moving forward with so much already achieved? I'm extremely goal orientated, and when I wrote down my goals that I said at the start of this show, my 3 main things I wanted to achieve in my career were to win the World Sailor of the Year, to win the America's Cup, and to win a gold medal. And in the space of a couple of years, 2 years, 3 years, I had achieved all of them. And it was a bit of a shock. They were my career goals, that when I retire, I want to have done that. And so it was a bit of a shock to me. But I was really easily motivated. Russell Coote said, I want you to lead the Oracle defence, and I want you to be a part of it, and in a manager type role. And I sort of, I don't know, I guess I sort of saw myself potentially following in the footsteps of Russell in learning how to manage teams and run teams, and then who knows, in the future, maybe the Cup or something like that. And so he said, you get to choose whoever you want, designers, sailors, shore team, everything. And he said, this is your team, go and build it. And I was just so motivated by that, and I just took the opportunity with both hands. And so I had about a month off, and then I was signed on full-time with Oracle again at the end of 2013, and was working full-time instantly from that day. So it wasn't hard to get going again. I just had been offered such an amazing opportunity that I had to take it. Yeah, what an incredible opportunity to pick the people you're going to move forward with. As you say, the Cup moved to Bermuda, foiling multi-hulls. You stayed with Oracle, sailing with Jimmy Spittle, Kyle Langford. I mean, at what point in that build-up did you guys know that things weren't quite going to plan?
I went down to New Zealand at the end of 2016. I think we're always doing pretty well in those first couple of years. I went down to New Zealand and we had heard some mixed reports about the New Zealand test boat and how they were flying the boat, and then we'd see these glimpses from our spies. We'd see these glimpses of the boat just sailing absolutely perfectly on the foils, high into windward, and just tracking super quick. And I remember sitting there going, I've seen so much footage of these boats sailing. They look like they're going fast, and our reports were hard to track. In the America's Cup, it's really hard to judge how quick they're going. Everyone tries to hide their displays so you can't take photos of their speeds, and so you're putting your little spy boat next to them but you're not allowed within 150 metres, and you're trying to pace alongside them and guess what their speeds are. It's really tough. You're not allowed speedos and all that sort of stuff. But I remember looking at the boat and they're going a lot faster than the numbers say they are. And so I said to Russell and Grant, I said, I think I need to go down there and see it in person. And when I flew down to New Zealand and went out on the boat and watched, I straight away realised we're in big trouble. The way they were able to fly the boat super high, and they were actually flying the boat with, I think it was Ray Davies sitting in the back corner with looked like a Game Boy, a little PlayStation control, and he's flying the boat. And then I said to these guys, like, Pete doesn't fly the boat. We all had twist grips by this stage. And they're unbelievably quick. They're high, they're fast, they're stable. And they're saying, but that's not allowed, that's illegal, you can't do that. You know, all these different things. You can't have a person at the back of the boat flying it. And then we sort of went down this path, what could they be doing? And yeah, we realised they were going down the cycling road. We'd heard rumours and got a few tip-offs, and we knew that they were going to go down this cycling method, and it was all a plan, because then all of a sudden they can use their hands for control systems to fly the boat. And it all made sense pretty quick then, what was going on. So for me, it was about 9 months before the Cup that I realised that we've already committed. We thought about the cycling road, and for all sorts of reasons we decided it was too risky for the defender to go down this road when we knew 5 other teams were going traditional, and then we go, well, New Zealand are going to go this way, but it's high risk, and we thought we can beat everyone in traditional, and if they go do that, they're going to try to hit a home run. If they do it, we're in trouble. But it was then I realised, again, we're in big trouble. These guys have got this dialed, their foils look great, and their control system is a huge step above ours, and that's the way it played out.
It was your second campaign with Oracle, sailing with Jimmy again. Just talk to us about that. What's Jimmy like to sail with?
The Jimmy I know is not what the media face he puts on. He's in the front of the media, he's cocky, I guess he's funny in both, but he's very confident and sort of self-assured in front of the media. Jimmy, he's an unbelievable teammate. Probably the best teammate I've ever sailed with in all my campaigns and different classes. Everything is about the team, and he always puts the team first. He's not cocky in any way. He's always trying to learn and better himself. He sets a standard where he will never ask anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. And so, for example, he's the first person in the gym each morning, and he's the last person to leave work every night. I remember I'm competitive, and I tried to go with him in this, and I just run myself into the ground trying to match his hours at work and match his fitness programming, and he's unbelievable at that stuff. And he's literally the sort of epitome of a leader. And anyone who's worked in his teams, I think, know that how good he is to be around and how important he is as a part of the team. So, this doesn't mean, this isn't a diss at him. I don't think he's a totally natural sailor that some people are, a Nathan Outridge, a Peter Burling. He doesn't have that raw talent. Everything he's sort of been able to achieve in his career, he's worked super hard, and he's worked harder than anyone to actually get his results. So I think in an underhanded way, I'm trying to give him a compliment. I don't think he's the most natural sailor, but I think his work ethic and everything overcomes that, and that's why he gets such good results.
Well, the inevitable happened. Team New Zealand won the Cup in Bermuda. How did your team take that loss?
Really, really tough. I didn't hang with Jimmy too much after that, but I hung a lot with the Aussies, Kyle Langford, Sam Newton, Kinley Fowler. We took it really hard. I know Kyle took it really hard. I took it really hard. I felt like I was a leader in that team. I was sort of a manager. I got everyone together, and I felt like we should have done better. Our sailing team was an unbelievable sailing team there, and this isn't a go at our designers, but we didn't put the fastest boat on the water, but that's hugely I'm hugely responsible of that. Jimmy's responsible of that. Kyle's responsible because our designers really took a lead from the sailors and direction from us. And we made some bad calls. And it's really tough, the America's Cup. It's so good. Hindsight, you sit there and go, oh, why didn't you just go cycling and use your hand as control systems? But you've just got to believe wholeheartedly that what you're doing is correct, and you've got to believe that you're going down the right path. And that's what we did. We just said, look, yeah, they're going a different way, but we're right. We've got it in the numbers, we've got it in the tools, the design tools. We know we're right. We're going to be able to sail this boat quicker than them. And we were wrong. And yeah, I took it really hard. And for the next year, basically, I didn't do much sailing. I was sort of doing bare minimum, just cruising along, and yeah, I was pretty upset.
It was the end of the road for that Oracle Cup team, but not the end of the road for the class. And quite quickly, there were rumours of the new foiling multi-hull circuit. How involved in the formation of SailGP were you, Tom?
Fortunately, I was very involved. I still remember standing on the podium when we lost in 2017. I was next to Larry Ellison, and I was a bit awkward. I'm standing there, and he sort of put his trust in me, and I'd sort of failed him. And I still remember we were up there waiting to go on. I think we're on stage maybe, and I said to him, "I'm really sorry, Larry. We messed this up." And he sort of looked at me and said, "Don't worry." And I don't know if it was there or backstage, but he said, This is a good thing. He goes, now we can do what I want to do, which is change the sport. He said, he goes, protocols, deed of gifts, all these things, they're just so restricting. He goes, I want to do something much better and without all these implications. And I want to do what I want to do and not have to worry about the challenges fighting me on everything. And I remember we were chatting about it then, myself, Russell and Larry, and they were talking about starting something new. And I didn't really know at the time. I probably wasn't listening closely enough, but they had already, I'm sure Russell and Larry had already discussed about, okay, we've got to start a new league and how do we do it? And then, yeah, geez, it was probably a couple of months after the Cup. I can't actually remember the timeline, but Russell said to me, we're going to do this. Do you want to be a part of it? And I said, look, I've always wanted to try and get an Australian America's Cup team together. I'm going to try to do that, but I'm still totally interested in this and I want to be a part of it. 100% yes. But just know I'm off you'll see media articles about me trying to raise money and things like that. He said, that's fine, no problem. Work hard at that and we'll see where we are in a few months, but let's be a part of it. And I wasn't able to raise enough money for an Australian team, and I went back to Russell and said, I'm all in. What are we doing? This was probably early 2018, and he said, okay, well, we're going to get a squad of nations together, and we want you to be the first skipper. He named some countries, and Australia wasn't on it. And he said, "Okay, USA, you've got your USA passport. You've been part of Oracle Team USA. Would you like to steer Oracle USA? Sorry." And I said, "Yep. Okay, let's do it." And I think I might have made a mumble or two about Australia, and I wonder if we could get an Australian team there. And then after another couple of months, he said, actually, I've chatted to Larry and he thinks Australia would do really good. We're going to go with an Australian team. What would you prefer? And I said, I'd prefer the Australian team. And it all formed, and then from everything, redesigning the boats, how we're going to change them, which boats we're going to buy of the existing America's Cup boats, how many new teams, okay, venues, format, what type of racing. We started off with a match racing finale, as we remember back then, and how many races are we going to do, what wind conditions. It was so cool being part of that. I just, 2 eyes, 2 ears and 1 mouth through that whole process. I just learnt so much listening and actually even going on a conference call with Larry Ellison and Russell Coots and myself, I was just in shock. I remember just pinching myself a few times, and yeah, I've learnt so much, and I was very fortunate to be there right at the beginning.
event one was in Sydney, of course, in the harbour, and you're helming the Australian boat. I mean, how exciting was that? Fleet racing, these amazing foiling catamarans against guys like Nathan Outridge, Phil Robertson, Billy Bisson from France. I mean, a real variety of talent from across the sport. What was that first regatta like?
That was unbelievable. Yeah, and I remember thinking it's a new thing. It's going to take a while to get some crowds and all that. But I remember there was a huge turnout on Sydney Harbour for the first event. There was a lot of things that weren't quite right. The format wasn't great. The way the operation ran and the spectator experience probably wasn't what it is today. But it was great. The wind was light, very light, and I remember that Dylan Fletcher, actually on the British boat, had broken a rudder, one of the big rudder wings, and so at SailGP they said, actually, we don't know what the problem is, so we're taking all the light air rudder wings off the boats, which meant we had light air boards and small high-speed rudder wings, and so I remember for the racing, no one was able to do foiling manoeuvres, and the sailing was very low level, but it was a lot due to that we were using these high-speed rudder wings, very small area, and couldn't do foiling manoeuvres. And so the racing wasn't high quality. I think we were the top team, and Nathan was there with us, and then there was a big gap to third. And I remember the racing was really spread out, and at one point we were sort of coming up to lap a team or something at one race, and I was like, oh, that probably doesn't look great. We've been advertising that they're one design boats and the racing's going to be super close, but it was the start of something big, and SailGP, as we know, is going from strength to strength, but yeah, everyone's got to start somewhere, and to start on Sydney Harbour for me was the best case scenario. I remember thinking, this can't be the way it's going to end, like this isn't right. I still know I've got a lot to give to a team, and I know that on my day I can compete with anyone. Oh, look at that, he got 4 first places. They don't see the 25 non-podiums I probably did that year as well.
You looked unstoppable in season 1, and it all came down to that winner-takes-all race in Marseille, your Australian team against Nathan's team Japan. We don't ever really talk about money on the podcast, but that race was for $1 million, wasn't it? I mean, how was that? I mean, and did it affect the approach to the race at all? What was it like trying to keep the team calm, racing for big money like that?
Yeah, I've never raced for prize money, ever. I didn't go down the match racing road or anything like that has prize money, and America's Cup even, it was big for me. I remember thinking, we've won every event this year. Well, I think we won 4 out of 5 events. We can't lose this last race. And at this stage, I didn't really know what SailGP is, where it's like anything can happen. Like I was like, okay, we're the favourite. We've got to shut this down. But now I just think, like, in that final race, anything can happen. It's any one of those 3 boats now can win this race. But it was such a crazy day. The wind shut down, and then we're like, if there's no racing, you guys win because you're the highest points leader heading into this race. It's a full glass out. We've got 10 minutes to go before the cut off. And I'm sitting there, and then a media boat, all of a sudden the photography boats start zooming over to us, and I'm like, and someone, I don't know who it was, Jason or Kyle, said, is it? Have they called it off? Like none of the course was in place. It would take them a while to set the course. And I remember going, I think it's over, but I don't want to say anything. Like, I think that's it, we've won. And all these photography boats are coming around. They had obviously been told that it's about to get cancelled. And then I didn't want to celebrate, and thank God I didn't in hindsight. And then next second, Ian Murray comes over the radio and says, we're moving the course away from the spectators. It wasn't even a race course in the sailing instructions. We're moving out here. We've seen some wind. We're going to go over here and follow us here, and we're going to lay a course as quick as we possibly can. And he went out there and laid this course so quick, but none of the spectators were cleared off the course. So we had no boundaries. We had no exclusion zones. It was just a madhouse, and we're just trying to prepare for this race. And we're like, where's the top marks? And I'm calling Ian Murray and he's saying, oh, we haven't put them in yet. They'll be in by the time you round the bottom mark. And I'm like, this is crazy. You can't do this. This is $1 million. Like, and sure enough, he ran the race, did the start, and our pre-start software didn't work and we weren't getting the countdown on the right time. We ended up breaking the entry and getting a pre-start penalty before we had even entered the box. And I remember thinking, this can't be the way it's going to end. Like, this isn't right. And sure enough, the wind actually filled in nicely and we're foiling comfortably. And we got rid of our penalty after the start. Nathan and Team Japan got off to a good start, and I just crazy butterflies and adrenaline at this stage. It was just so mad. And I just remember saying, stay close, stay close. And I said to the crew a couple of times, I said, they're going to make a mistake. They're going to make a mistake. We'll get them. And a little opportunity came, I guess, at the second top mark where Nathan took the right option, in my opinion. He went straight in, minimised one tack, left-hand turn. And we took the extra tack to get a split. And Nathan was extremely unlucky and got he sailed a little too far, got into a little bit of a hole. We got extra pressure, closed the game right up. And then Nathan went to jibe to cover us, and his board didn't get on the lock. And I remember seeing him drop the board, and I go, he's going to be able to match us here and go right in front of us. But for whatever reason, he got too much windward heel. His board took too long to get on the lock, and he wasn't able to turn. You can't turn these boats until the board hits the lock. And so he turned 2 seconds too late. We were able to get the inside, and I said, well, we've got the inside here, like we've got buoy room. And Nathan went into a luff and nearly got us. And we were able to, I forget what the number was, it was sort of 60 centimetres or something. We crossed him by and were able to get inside and went on to win the race. It was madness. It was one of the most craziest races I've ever done, and it was, we were just in shock when we crossed the line. We couldn't believe we actually did it.
We were trying to commentate from London, having filled for about an hour and a half. Then had 7 minutes of the most crazy race. But what a fantastic win! And presumably, Tom, a win like that sees the $1 million spread out around the greater team.
Yeah. It's so SailGP has policies, and they change each year. And at that time, it was 50% went to the crew on board and 50% to everyone else. However, I wanted to divvy it up. And so 5 crew on the boat, 50% of $1,500,000, so $100,000 each to the sailors. And then the shore team got anywhere from sort of between $40,000 and $75,000, depending on how long they'd been with the team. And so US dollars, that's big for Australia, big money. And yeah, it was great, and it was so nice to sort of, everyone was just, I got messages back from everyone saying this money will change my life, and it's not me, people are thanking me, but it's Larry Ellison and SailGP that provided this. And yeah, I'm in the good fortune position in recent years to be able to hand out prize money to my team, fortunately very consistently. And so I'm people, I think my crew love me more than they should, but I'm just in a good position at the moment.
You got to keep delivering.
Yeah, we're not there, we're not done yet.
Let's talk a bit about the commercial model of SailGP. The British team now own their franchise. The Danish team are a team with a very obvious commercial sponsorship. But we've also seen Team Japan recently withdrawn from the lineup. I mean, presumably in favour of a commercially viable Swiss boat. Are you under pressure to create a commercially viable team, to stay in the SailGP fleet? How's that working?
Yeah, we're all under pressure for that. When SailGP started, we said, I remember the orders from Russell were, Larry's committing to 5 years, and by the end of the 5 years, we need you to be commercially sustainable. He said, but there's got to be progression. At the end of year 1, if you don't have sponsors, look, we want you to have we had targets. I think it was about $1 million by the end of year 1. By the end of year 2, it was about $3 million, and so on to about $7 million at the end of year 5, where you're running completely off Larry's books and commercially sustainable. I know the rules. Nathan knows the rules. We all know the rules, and it's really tough. I see a lot of criticism saying, "Oh, well, that's what happens when you put sailors in the CEOs of these teams," and we do cop a bit of flack for that. And for sure, I'm not the best CEO in the world. I'm not the best manager in the world, but I've been given an opportunity to learn about this world and to become as good as I can, and I'm going to take it with both hands. And same with Nathan. SailGP's progressed a lot quicker than we expected. I remember we were talking about by the end of year 5, we were hoping for 10 teams and 10 events around the world, and that would be amazing to have that. And we're now in season 3. We're essentially going to have 10 teams by season 3, 10 events. Actually, I'm not even sure how many. It might be 12 events this season. I'm actually not sure. And chatting to Russell 2 days ago, he's saying we've got 15 events planned for next year. It's grown faster than we all could expect. Russell's now getting teams coming in saying, I've got your entry fee and I've got your sign-on fee. We're commercially sustainable. We've got all the funding. Please let us in. And SailGP can't build boats fast enough, really. SailGP Technologies down in New Zealand is building boats as quick as they can, but if you've got a team there that's costing Larry Ellison millions of dollars, and you've got a team that's willing to pay millions of dollars entry fee and not and be able to run completely off his books, it's a pretty easy decision, really. So Nathan, all teams are under pressure. Nathan, unfortunately, is the first one to sort of succumb to that pressure. Unbelievable results on the water, but not being able to sign sponsorship. We're on the chopping block. I know initially I was thinking, France and Spain, these guys might go before us, even USA, but in recent times they've all signed a lot of sponsorship. You might not see the branding yet, but behind the doors there's a lot of big deals going down to save those teams, and they're now doing better. And so the pressure comes on us a lot. We've signed some small sponsors, but nothing major. But fortunately, which could save us and which probably definitely gave us the edge over Nathan, was we have a home event in Sydney. We've just signed a 3-year deal, and the event is actually bringing in a few $1 million each year in partnerships. So Russell, fortunately for us, is sort of viewing the Australian event and the Australian team as one, and how much money that comes in the door is just one total. It's not separate, the event and the team. He's looking at us saying, well, without the Australian team, we can't have the Australian event, so you lose the revenue that's brought in from that. So unlike Nathan, without a Japanese event, he didn't have that luxury, whereas I've got that luxury, but I by no means think that I'm safe, and we've got to bring in sponsorship at Team Australia. We've got to either get some owners to buy the team, or bring in some serious sponsorship dollars, or 100% we're on the chopping block. But I think signing a 3-year deal with the New South Wales government and Destination New South Wales has saved us for the time being, at least.
It seems hard to get the funds out of Australia. How frustrating is that, whether it's for a cup? I mean, I know you're great friends with John Bertrand as well. I mean, it must be so frustrating that you can't get something off the ground.
It is. It's really frustrating. In between every SailGP event, my basically full-time role is to get sponsorship, and I haven't been able to do that, secure that. I spend, I can't tell you how many hundreds of, probably thousands of hours I've spent trying to get sponsorship, and I'm haven't been able to do it yet. It's extra frustrating because we're getting such good results on the water, and I kind of feel like, who wouldn't want to be associated with a team that's never had any scandals, never had any bad press. We go out there, we represent our country with I like to think, honour, and and represent our country in a bright light. We compete well. We're good people. Great personalities on our team. I'd like to think, why can't we get these sponsors? But I'm hoping I'll look back at this, I'll listen to this podcast, and whenever it comes out, and just go, oh, well, things have gotten a lot brighter since then. So we've got a lot of talks going on, and a lot of really good discussions with a lot of companies, but we just need some big ones to drop, and the Australian SailGP future will be sealed.
With all that going on, of course, with SailGP, the Cup had moved to monohulls and was taking place in Auckland. But for you, Tom, you didn't have a Cup team to sail for. I mean, how frustrating, how difficult a time was that, not being involved in it?
It was really tough. I think I had joked around between 2017 to 2020 that how good it is. I get to go and sail SailGP, I get to do my moths, I do TP52s, I can do whatever sailing I want. I'm not stuck into an America's Cup contract where I have to stay at the base full time. And I remember I joked a lot about that and saying I'm living the life. But when all the boats arrived in New Zealand and they all hit the water against each other and they're all training and sizing each other up, I was hugely jealous and disappointed I wasn't there. I was glued to the footage. I used to read forums and everything and picture the boats and the breakdowns, and I was so upset I wasn't there. So just seeing a boat that cool out there racing, and the America's Cup game, I do miss that. I miss the design. I miss going into battle with your team and all the work behind the scenes in designing the fastest boat you can, and then the day it hits the water and you're just absolutely giddy to sail it, to see is it as quick as the design tools are saying it's going to be, and I really miss that. So Auckland was tough for me to watch.
I mean, obviously the world was wrapped up in the effects of the pandemic then, and in Australia the barriers were well and truly up. I mean, you had to watch the Cup unfold. What were you thinking watching the Cup from afar?
I remember being quite upset that I remember thinking, and Nathan and I, we've probably shared a few beers over this and been a bit drunk and arm in arm around each other's shoulders, saying we should be there. We're good. We're as good as these guys. We could beat these guys. And I remember that's the feeling I had. I was like, I should be there. Like I can race these guys. I'm as good as them. I've got a lot of design knowledge. I could be a huge asset to a team, but I'm not there. I did get a couple of offers early on, but they were very small roles in teams, and I didn't really realise that us losing in Bermuda, that I went from, I guess, one of the biggest names in sailing, and just one loss in the Cup. I was getting offers as, you can drive, you can come sail on the B boat. You're not allowed to race on our World Series team. Back then they were planning World Series events, and you could be a good backup to this person. And I said no to all these offers, and I just remember I can understand it, but I felt really disrespected at the time. I felt like I was a better sailor than I was getting credit for, and but that's the way. That's a Cup. It's ruthless, and people go, well, I can imagine now. I look back at it now and go, well, Tom led that team, and they were fully funded. Oracle Team USA 2017 campaign. They had everything there. They had all the tools, and they lost. They got beaten 7-1 by Team New Zealand. So why would I hire that guy? And I can understand that, but at the same time, I still know I've got a lot to give to a team, and I know that on my day I can compete with anyone. So I'm glad that I'll be back.
Without a Cup team, though, it seemed you had a phenomenal sailing season. You won the Moth Worlds with races to spare, I think. You won another $1 million race to take SailGP Season 2. I mean, you really seemed to embrace the opportunities of a man in form. What was that sailing season like?
Yeah, the last couple of years have been amazing for me. I guess without a cup team, I've had the freedom to do what I want. If I want to go do a moth regatta, I don't have to ask for permission. I just have to organise it all, and I'm there. If I get an opportunity to sail on a TP52, an RC44, a maxi in the Rolex Middle Sea race, I could jump at every opportunity that I was given. And it's kind of like it really, once you start getting results, the more opportunities come, and all of a sudden I was getting asked to do so much sailing, and I was saying no to things just because they didn't fit in the calendar, and I just took it on. I just thought, you know what, and it sounds weird, but I guess COVID sort of epidemic meant that I came to Europe, and I committed to coming to Europe, and I had to sign something saying I wasn't coming home for at least 6 months. And the Australian government said, okay, well, if you commit to leaving for 6 months, we'll allow you back in at the end of that. And I had to get this thing signed saying I was representing Australia on the world circuit, and it kind of was a blessing in disguise. As much as I missed home, I wanted to go home. I was like, well, I'm in Europe, I'm hanging out here, I've got all these gaps in my calendar. I'm just going to say yes to a heap of programs. Let's go and do everything. Let's do TP52s, Swan 50s, all these Moth regattas. I got to do foiling week. I got to do the world titles. I was so lucky, and I just filled my calendar. I said yes to the Middle Sea race on Comanche, and just totally filled my calendar and got all these opportunities. And then I was fortunate. I got some amazing results, and the teams I was with, we were just doing really well. And yeah, so the whole COVID thing actually did really wonders for my sailing career. I got to sail amazing classes, and got great results, and came home to Australia after 7 months, and a big smile on my face.
You wrapped up the season with the World Sailor of the Year awards, and I wanted to ask you, Tom, 2021, I mean, we had an Olympic Games, we had an America's Cup, as well as a Vendée Globe. Giles Scott won gold in Tokyo, Pete Burling and Blair Took led the successful Cup defence, Yannick Bestaven won the Vendée, all among the nominees. And I've heard you talk very diplomatically about winning the award. But how much of a measure of success for you personally is it to see that even in a year of such landmark sailing events, you can win World Sailor for all the things you've achieved that year? I mean, it's quite an acknowledgement, isn't it, of your talents? Yeah,
I'm so honoured to win that award. I still remember in the late 90s, I remember I used to tune in to who was winning the World Sailor of the Year award, and Robert Scheidt and Ben Ainsley were always going head to head for it, and Torben Grail and all these legends of the sport. And I remember just going, this is the top accolade in our sport, because it's not winning an Olympic gold medal. It's like you have to be the top Olympian out of all the classes, and then after you're the top Olympian, you've got to go against the top America's Cup sailors. You could theoretically go against like your John Bertrands or your Dennis Connors or your Jimmy Spithills and Dean Barker, Russell Coots, all these guys, and then one of those guys is probably deemed their top America's Cup sailor, and then the ocean racing people. And then I love that it's also the windsurfers, the kite surfers. It's basically all water sports, except for maybe surfing. And I remember just going, like, that's the top honour in our sport. And I was very fortunate to win in 2010, and that was a shock, but I looked on paper and I go, well, I think my results are actually as good or better than these people that I'm up against. I think I've got a good shot at this. But then in 2021, I actually didn't. I thought there's no way I'm going to win this. I have been out of the America's Cup. Pete and Blair have just gone on and won the America's Cup plus a silver medal in that same year. And then Giles Scott and Yannick, and I was like, okay, there's no chance I'm getting this. I won a Moth Worlds and some SailGP races. Actually, a lot of the SailGP events weren't actually included in that cycle, that year's tally, but I was like, there's no way. And so I was actually pretty shocked to win that. But I think the reason they gave it to me is because they saw I was doing single-handed moth sailing, I was doing TP52s, I was doing ocean races in the with the winning with Comanche and breaking the record in the middle sea race, SailGP, and I think the people who voted must have just liked a bit of the diversity I was able to do, and that, yeah, I was successful, but God, I did a lot of events. They probably just see the, oh, look at that, he got 4 first places. They don't see the 25 non-podiums. So I probably did that year as well, but it was a successful year and I was super honoured to win that.
Most recently, of course, Tom, you've signed with American Magic and the start of a new chapter. There's strict nationality qualification rules for this cup, but as you mentioned earlier, you have an American passport. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, I've had an American passport my whole life. My mother's American, and yes, I think I got my passport when I was 2 or 3 years old, and yeah, it's Mum always, when I get America's Cup offers come in, Mum always says, look, I know you're Australian and you're born and raised there, Dad's Australian, but if you're ever going to compete for another country other than Australia, I hope it's the US. And yeah, so when I've had a few offers from a lot of European teams and stuff, but I always remember that. I like to make my parents proud, and Mum's an American, and so I like the fact that I compete for my second country.
Well, that passport's coming in useful, isn't it? That's for sure.
It sure is.
How much are you looking forward to this challenge? Helming with Paul Goodison, of course. I'm assuming in double helm configuration. You and Goody, you have a long history, rivals mostly, going way back in the laser fleet. And I'm also assuming it's a new style of sailing for many. I mean, how's that going to be with a port and starboard helm?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything's been confirmed yet, but for sure we're looking very hard at the port starboard helm. I think every team is probably using that as a baseline and then going from there. Yeah, and going with Goody. Goody and I were sort of great friends and then turned great rivals in the laser class, and yeah, now we're just good friends through all the moth sailing we do together. I've heard a few jokes about 2 laser sailors are steering this AC-75. Are you sure that's the right decision to make? And I like to think we've developed a few more skills since our laser days. But this is an amazing challenge for me. I'm really proud to be sort of representing the New York Yacht Club. That's huge. I love the history of the Cup, and I love all the stories, and obviously being good friends with John Bertrand, I've heard all the stories of him versus the New York Yacht Club, and I love that, the prestige of it all. And so an amazing challenge for me to try to help New York Yacht Club win back the Cup. And yeah, we've got an exciting team. I've been fortunate to meet Doug DeVos through their TP52s, and he's an amazing guy. I heard all the stories, everyone saying like how amazing this guy is and how passionate he is and loves the sport, and meeting him firsthand, it's all the rumours are true, and he's an amazing guy, and Ep4 I haven't met yet, but I hope to soon, and so it's a team that's really well backed, and they're some great patrons and principals of the team, and it's exciting. Really looking forward to joining them full time and getting into it.
Oh, we're all looking forward to seeing it develop. Tom, I wrote these questions watching day 2 of SailGP. Heading out onto the water in the F50. I mean, you're in your helmet, your goggles, your impact vest, your oxygen, speeds of over 50 miles an hour, flying boats with wings for sails. If I told the teenage Tom Slingsby watching the Sydney Olympics on the headland that 20 years later he'd be racing like this, what would he have said?
Well, I mean, if I even saw a picture of the boats I sail now, back in the 15-year-old me, I'd say that's not a boat. that's a spacecraft or something. You look at a drawing of these boats and you're like, how does that sail? That's not possible. It's just unbelievable how far the sport has evolved. You think of like the high performance boat when I was a 15-year-old sitting at the Sydney Olympics. A high performance boat was maybe the mini maxi 80 footers or 75 footers. I remember we had them at the Sydney Hobart race, and that was probably the quickest boat in the world. And maybe some of those round the world cats. I remember looking at them, that PlayStation, Sony PlayStation cat, and those things sailing around. I was like, that's the craziest boat I've ever seen. And you look at that now and it looked like a dinosaur. They're just it's a big catamaran, but there's no such thing as foils or anything now, and wing masts, and I wouldn't believe it. There's no way I could actually believe that I would have been steering the Australian team, and the fact that we're sailing these boats, and I travel the world, these amazing venues all around the world, sailing the coolest boats against the top guys in the world, and leading an Australian team. There's no way I'd believe that. It's as I said, I wasn't a good junior sailor, and at 15 years old I was still getting my ass kicked by Nathan Outridge and Joe Turner back at home. So I would have said those guys might have a chance, but not me.
You famously wrote a list of things you wanted to achieve as a teenager. Gold medal, America's Cup win, World Sailor of the Year awards. You've done them all, arguably at the peak of your sailing talents, Tom, and with such a stellar decade of sailing behind you. What more do you want to achieve?
It's a good question. I've thought about it a lot. I guess I realise the America's Cup, leading an Australian team to the America's Cup. John Bertrand is a hero and idol of mine. I've just looked up to him forever. Doing what he did, something like that would be unbelievable. But I also realise that I don't have that power. I can only do so much. I can be a great sailor and have the skills I have, but raising that amount of money, I've realised I'm not the best at raising that sort of money. It's not what I'm good at, and so I need a lot of help if I was going to achieve that. And not closing the door on it at all, but I'm getting a bit older now. But even if I'm not sailing and that opportunity comes in the future and I could be a part of a team like that, that would be very cool. And then I guess the other thing is just as you said, I was at the start of SailGP from day dot when it began, and seeing how that's evolved. And for me, that kind of feels like my own little America's Cup team. I was the guy, I was there designing the colour scheme on the boat, the logo, what our Australian team logo is going to look like. I was drawing the roo. I did the roo design on the boat and started the team, hired everyone. And so that's like my baby now. And so for me, look, if in 20 years' time I'm involved in this, the Australian SailGP team still running, I'm involved in it, and obviously I wouldn't be sailing, but I've managing the team, bringing through the next generation of Australian talent, and trying to put Australia to the top of the world sailing podium. That would be the most amazing thing for me. If my legacy could be still being involved in SailGP and an Australian team, and it in 20 years being a huge thing, I'd be absolutely wrapped. So I don't know. That's my goal for the future.
Tom Slingsby, finally on the podcast. It's taken a while, but it's been worth the wait. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
The very talented, very accomplished Tom Slingsby, giving us just a glimpse into the life of one of the modern era's most decorated athletes. It's no exaggeration, there were a whole host of questions on my list that went unasked. We didn't even touch on moth sailing, what it's like to win the Sydney Hobart or the Middle Sea race, or that time he won the Etchells Worlds, crewing for none other than last month's guest, the legendary John Bertrand. Tom, a heartfelt thanks on behalf of all our listeners. Keep on doing what you're doing. The sport of sailing is very lucky to have you. That's it for this month. We've a host of exciting guests lined up in the months to come. I'm hoping there won't be such a large gap between pods this time around. It's been a busy time of year at Podcast HQ, but look out for another edition soon. Until then, if you're enjoying what you hear, buy us a coffee. It's super easy. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/sailing podcast and do your bit to help us bring you these uninterrupted, ad-free chats from the biggest names in the sport of sailing. Before we go, a big thanks to Tim at Vertigo Films, whose relentless work and enthusiasm makes these podcasts possible. I say it to many of our guests, but for many reasons, Tim, the sport of sailing is lucky to have you. Oh, keep in touch via social media. I'm Shirley Sail on Instagram and Twitter, and Shirley Robertson on Facebook. And let us know where you're listening. That's all from us this month. Thank you so much for listening. Have fun on the water and sail safe, everyone.
This is Castle 1. Castle 1. Race officer speaking.
Lane line is on boundary up ahead, 35 seconds out.
A bit lower and faster here.
That's a good one, Jimmy.
Still gaining on the lane line there.
We're looking at 10-5 and 42. Matching him on the boundary, yeah. Copy.
This is Castle 1 standing by. Out.